So it's been almost 4 weeks since I got my Surface Duo 2, and I wondered if you guys would be interested in seeing a review in progress update in the near future. So I ran a poll on the community page here, and let's just say you guys did speak out very loudly and very clearly and said you would like to hear where we are 1 month later, and I think a decent amount here has changed. I've definitely observed some more things. So in this video, I'm going to quickly run through where I am at with my Surface Duo 2, and we'll see where my opinion may or may not have changed. So the first thing that I want to talk about here is just the hardware in general. I still think this thing looks absolutely tremendous. I know a lot of you hate the camera bump on the back. It's whatever. I'm fine with it. It's holding up really well. Not a scratch on the screen, despite the fact I'm not using a screen protector. Obviously, I've got a dbrand skin on here now, which I think looks quite nice and will protect that Gorilla Glass 5 on the outside. My USB-C port is pristine. No problems there as of yet. Fingers crossed that that is not a repeat of what happened with the original Duo. Really, there's no problems with the hardware so far for me. You know, in terms of that camera bump, when I'm in phone mode, you know, does that bump bother me? Does the gap bother me? It didn't bother me in my review, and it doesn't bother me now. I use this thing in phone mode with some regularity. I mean, look, is it the prettiest thing in the world? No, but in actual practice, it's fine. I really have no issues with it. If anything, I feel like it gives me something more substantial to hold on to. I kind of like the fact that it's wedge shaped because I'm right-handed, so I kind of hold it like this, and I feel like it just kind of gives me a grip to hold on to. And I kind of have the pinky cradle going on, you know, where you hold your phone like this, and it kind of spreads the weight out a little bit, which I feel like actually kind of is better because, you know, your pinky, you can see my pinky's kind of curved there. That's like, you know, we're slowly evolving into phone cradling grips here. And I almost feel like it hurts less than holding like a normal phone. Granted, it's really heavy, so I should preface that by saying holding another really heavy phone that isn't quite as thick as that. Anyways, all that to say, the hardware I feel like is still really, really good. I've got no complaints here with the hardware at all. As far as battery life goes, it's been pretty adequate. I can't sit here and tell you that it's been incredible or anything like that, but it's been pretty good. I'd say most days I get 4.5 hours of screen on time, which equates to me unplugging it at 6:30 or 7 o'clock in the morning. And when I'm going to bed that night, 9:30, 10 o'clock, it's being plugged back in. And it's generally fine. I don't have to charge it during the day. Although when I'm in my car, it's just kind of habitual routine for me to put it in my car dock and plug it in. I did this with my Z Fold. I do this with my phones in general. I just habitually top off as I'm moving around. But there were days where I purposely said I'm not going to top off at all, and I can still make it to the end of the day. This is not a 2-day phone, but as a 1-day phone with two 90 hertz displays, I think that the battery life is more than adequate. It's fine. I also find the charging speed is okay. Again, it's not incredible, but the charging speed is decent enough. As long as you're using a charger that is, you know, able to charge at, I think it's 23 or 25 watts, it's going to charge up pretty quickly. One thing that I have noticed since my original review is I have had a couple of minor Bluetooth reception issues with Surface Duo 2. Now, I mentioned in my initial review, I believe, that while using my Soundcore Liberty Air 2 Pros, I had to turn off LDAC, and that fixed my problems. And with that device, it did. I've had no reception issues at all with those earbuds. I can say the same thing about my Surface headphones. No issues at all. I can walk around my house and leave my phone on a table, and it's fine. But with some earbuds, like the Palm Buds that I just reviewed, if I put them on and cup my ears like this, the sound will cut out. Also, there are weird times where sometimes the audio will speed up almost, weird reception issues. Now, they're really, really sporadic for me. Like I'm talking a whole day of using the Palm Buds Pro, it happened twice, and I'm talking very, very briefly. But those issues are there. If that's something that concerns you, I've seen other people have worse problems than me, but it's just something that I want to point out because it's something that has happened to me since my initial review. Something else that I've noticed a little bit that I think I initially thought was some kind of weird bug, but now I know what it is. Occasionally when you have your Duo 2 and you move it over into phone mode, I would notice that I'm trying to do stuff and nothing's happening. Well, the reason nothing is happening is because I'm in the window of when I first put it in phone mode. You'll see the screen facing you says double tap to switch screens. And sometimes it knows I'm touching that screen. And so, not every time, but sometimes it's like it's listening for that. So it's ignoring what's happening up here. If you notice that happening, as I've noticed occasionally, it might happen once or twice a day. You just kind of have to lift your finger or your hand off the back of the display to shift your grip for a split second, and then you can go back to what you're doing. So that's something that is a little bit annoying. It does require a bit of a learning curve, but it's not that big of a deal to me in the long run. But I had not noticed it at all in my initial review. Let's talk about the touch-related issues, right? Swiping up to go home, pulling down from the taskbar. So initially, I had a bit of a problem with this. It was something that was frustrating me for that first day or so. But as more time has gone by, that problem for me has kind of just resolved itself, and it's not something that's really irritating me all that badly. Let's kind of take a look at what we're talking about here on the overhead camera. So initially, when I would launch an app, I would try to go home and see if I can duplicate this here. It's almost hard for me to make it happen now. But every now and again, something about the way I was doing my gesture or something, it just occasionally did not want to work correctly. Now, I have noticed now that when I do have that issue, it tends to be something that happens if I'm doing a lot of things, right? I'm loading up multiple apps. And basically what's happening here is, if you notice, if I try to swipe up to go home while the other screen is still going through its animation of going home, it won't work. But once you start realizing these things and learning that, instead of trying to swipe up while that animation is still occurring, you just wait till it's done, you're totally fine. So there's lots of little learning curve things like that going on. Now, as for the notification shade, this is a little bit touchier for me. So in general, if you start up here in the bezel and come down, you seem to be able to do this at pretty much 100%. But if you start even slightly too low, you're going to wind up getting something like the swipe down to search menu. But as you can see, it is something that I can pretty reliably do at this point. But, there are moments where lots of things are going on. You're trying to go home, you're trying to pull down, where it may act a little bit strange and in a way that might be unfamiliar to you. So I am appreciative of other people that have had their issues with the touch controls in terms of the gesture navigation. But it's something that, 95% of the time for me right now is totally fine. Now, something that isn't quite as fine for me is, unfortunately, typing. I feel like it's good a lot of the time, but there's just some strange things going on that I really can't quite describe to you. And it's better going from SwiftKey to Gboard, partially because Gboard is just way better at autocorrect. It seems to just, maybe it's just from the years of using it. It just knows me better. But SwiftKey tends to get what I want to say wrong way more, despite the fact that I prefer the layout of SwiftKey. But there's just weirdness about typing, right? You'll be typing and you feel like you're doing a pretty good job, and you'll look up and there's a space in the middle of a word and a period. There's just weird errors. Now, that doesn't happen all the time. A lot of the time I type just fine, but I just seem to have a harder time typing than I feel like I should. Now, I do use voice to text all the time, and that pretty much resolves that issue for me. Something else that SwiftKey does that is super irritating is sometimes I will type a little bit and then I'll use speech to text and it'll type a bit more. And then the cursor will, instead of being at the end of what I just typed, it will jump back up to the beginning or to the middle where I started the speech to text. So then I'll go to continue typing the rest of it or whatever, and then I'll be typing in the middle of the message. And I have to look up and realize it, erase that, move my cursor to the end, and then type again. That stuff is weird. Occasionally, Gboard just doesn't want to open up. I'll hit on a text field and it just doesn't open. And typically what you have to do at that point is maybe go home and do the swipe down to search, and the keyboard will pop up there, close that, and then touch the text field again, and the keyboard launches. This might happen to me 3 or 4 times a week. So it's not all that common, but these are some weird issues that are going on. And I think a lot of these things are just touch responsiveness kinds of issues. I almost wonder if Surface Duo 2 has palm rejection that's cranked up a little bit too high, because I've also noticed that the angle that you use your finger on the screen seems to kind of affect the way things work. Like if you use your flat thumb like that, occasionally things don't work as well, like you just saw there. But if you bring down the point of your finger, things seem to work quite a bit more reliably. So I almost wonder for some people that are like, man, it just doesn't work at all for me. It's really bad for me. Maybe you've got fatter fingers than me or something, and maybe that's got something to do with it. Anyway, there are touch response issues. I just don't think that they're that big of a deal, at least not subjectively for me. Something that I don't hear a lot of people talking about, and this is very true for me, especially coming from the original Surface Duo, is cellular signal. So the original Surface Duo was actually missing a particular band that if you lived in a more rural area, you really needed. So where I work in my part-time job, it's in a warehouse building, and it's kind of off in an area where there's not very good cell signal. And in that building, my original Surface Duo had no signal at all. If I needed to get a text message through, I had to walk into the parking lot to be able to get that text message. It was really, really bad. Now with my Z Fold, I did have signal in the building. I would say 40 to 50% of the building, I had some signal and things would try to load, albeit slowly. Texts and calls were fine. Strangely enough, with Duo 2 on the same network, the same SIM has been moved between them, I have better signal than I did with the Z Fold 2. I have pretty good signal through, I would say, like 80% of my building, and things load relatively well in that building. So cell signal compared to the original Duo is miles better, and just compared to other good phones, it's really, really good. Speeds are very good. I've been using Mint Mobile. Speeds are great around Knoxville, Tennessee, and just in general, really pleased with cell signal. Let's talk about the glance bar. I've had a few people ask me questions about what I think about the glance bar. If you don't know, basically the screens curve around the back side here so that I can hit the power button. You can see a little display of the time there. When I get a text message, you'll get a little blue flash, or whenever you plug it in. Let's see if I can plug it in and be on screen. You can see the charging state load up through there, which I do actually like that a little bit. But the glance bar, notifications and things like that on the spine of the device, I literally don't use it at all. I just don't. It's cool to see the power go up the back of it. It's cool when it flashes, when it's ringing. But I wear a smartwatch. I wear a Fitbit Versa 3. I don't care about this at all. It's a neat parlor trick, but it's completely useless to me. In fact, if not for little things like the charging state or volume when music is playing, just looking neat to me, I don't use it. I just like it being there. I would have disabled it. Let's talk about the camera. I think the camera is pretty darn good, actually. You know, a lot of people have kind of gone out of their way to dump on the camera on Surface Duo 2. And look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's a Pixel or that it's an iPhone, but can it take shots that are good enough that I'm not out and about, that I don't see something happening, and I think to myself, damn, I wish I was carrying a different phone right now because I would take a picture of this, but because my phone is the Surface Duo, I'm just not even going to bother? No, that thought is no longer in my head, whereas it used to be. I can take pictures that I'm quite happy with. Let's quickly look at a couple. This is a picture in portrait mode of my dog. She was resting peacefully on my lap. Let's zoom in here and you can get a good look of the clarity, the detail here, which is very, very good. Portrait mode is awesome on Surface Duo 2. I know it's crazy to hear. Here's a shot taken with the wide angle lens in the backyard, just nice fall colors and so forth coming through. It's a perfectly passable image. Here's one using the telephoto lens. Look at the nice colors and everything. Again, we can zoom in here and, you know, it's pretty good. This is one of my favorite pictures that I have ever taken on any phone, and it was taken with a Surface Duo. Look how good this looks. Look at the clarity, look at the color of the grass, the detail in her fur, the way that the focus slowly blurs as it falls off. This thing is capable of taking some really good shots. Now, it does suffer in low light. You can get an idea here. This is a kind of a lower light image, and when you first look at it, I think it looks pretty good. But when you start to zoom in, you do start to notice that you're losing some detail. There's some grain going on there. Now, there is a Gcam port that I have suggested people download, and that does help a ton with low light, but that's the absolute worst part of this thing's camera is low light performance. I would say video performance is similarly meh. The stabilization is horrifically bad. If it's planted still, I think it's passable. If you're walking with it, video is terrible. If you want to see more camera samples, I'll link to my camera review because none of that's really changed a whole lot. I want to point out that in addition, though, to the low light performance not being that great, it's also got a weird issue where the actual viewfinder is slow and kind of laggy when you're looking around. That's irritating, and there is more shutter lag than I would want there to be. It's not as bad as on the original Duo, and a lot of the time there's no shutter lag at all, but sometimes there is that split second between the button being pressed and the picture actually being taken. These are not deal breakers for me, and in general, I do not walk around with this in my pocket thinking I wish I had another phone with me to take pictures. It is more than adequate. And I'm probably crazy, but I actually like taking pictures in book mode. One of my favorite things to do, despite the fact that I've had people comment and call me a liar that I'm just making things up to make it sound better than it is taking pictures in what I'm calling the DS laptop posture. So basically what I'll do is I'll open up the camera and I will put it on this screen over here, which is not the screen that has the camera bump on it. And if I rotate it long ways like this and kind of bend it down like this, I can effectively look down here and take a picture out here. Now, a lot of people are like, why would you want to do that? Why would you want to do that? Because it shades the screen. Now, these aren't dim screens, but I like the idea of being able to look down like this at the screen so I can take my picture, but I'm taking the picture up here. I'm not having to do this, right? I can just kind of comfortably look down at my now shaded screen. I can see what I'm doing more easily that way. I like it. You can call me a liar if you want, but I'm being truthful. I actually do that a lot. In fact, that picture that I showed a minute ago of the tree in my backyard, I swear to you, that is how I took that picture. It's the position I was in when I took it. So as for the elephant in the room bugs, I'm really not having very many of them. In my original review, I think I showed some screenshots of some bugs that the launcher had going on. I don't think I have seen anything like that since my review. I may be mistaken here, but if it's happened, I don't even remember it, but I really don't think I've seen any of them. The examples where the launcher's just misaligned and icons are doing weird things, that's not happened to me like at all over the last 3 weeks or so. I see lots of people asking me, oh, do you have this bug? Do you have that bug? And the answer is almost always no, I really don't. The issues I've talked about are touch sensitivity related issues, and they're not that bad to me. I've not had any crashes. In fact, my camera app, I talked about my camera review that the camera app had crashed twice on me while I was using the camera. That has not happened anymore at all, 0 times since then. All in all, a month in, I'm really enjoying carrying Surface Duo again. I went from being skeptical, worried, nervous about spending that money to do this again after how badly the first one went. But I gotta tell you guys, a month later, I'm enjoying this. I'm like, it's good. If I had to give it a 1 to 10, let's say 10 is the perfect phone, 9's amazing, 8 is great, 7's good, 6 is okay, 5 is bad, and on down, 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 down. I'd give it a solid 8, like an 8.2 right now, right? I would put it in the great realm. Now, this is subjectively for me, but I love having a dual screen phone. My brain works better with 2 things happening because I am so scatterbrained that for me, I'll be looking at my news list on Twitter. I'll see something that makes me think of something that I need to know, or maybe I need to bookmark this or something. And I can open that link, do my bookmarking, but not lose track of what I was doing, because I'll tell you right now, that's what my brain does. If I stop and I occlude one thought process with another, I'm not coming back to this one. It's in the ether. It's gone. This thing makes me more productive. I swear to you that it does. The widgets on the side that I go to with my to-do list and my OneNote, being able to access these things while not occluding my current train of thought, makes me more productive. It works so well with my fragmented brain. Now, this is something that is very subjective, okay? All of this is subjective. You may get a Duo 2 and have way more bugs than I'm having, but I'm telling you right now, for me, I went from being skeptical, getting it, being pleasantly surprised, and over the last month, regaining that feeling I had with the original, as the original did for me get better for a while, right? Before it fell off a cliff and the black screen bug showed up and everything started going haywire. I'm hoping that doesn't happen again. But I'm back in that spot again where I'm like, man, I love Surface Duo. This thing is so good. I enjoy it so much. I even enjoy phone mode on this thing. There's something to me about having this big, wide screen. Is it one-handable? No. Like, look, earlier today I was in Kroger's and I was, I do the scan bag and go thing. I needed a couple things. So I got a bag I brought with me on my arm or on this arm. And I've got my phone opened up. I got my text messages on one screen and I've got the scan bag and go app on the other screen. So I'm texting my wife, hey, did we need bread? Because I, again, can't remember anything. And then with the other hand, I'll scan the barcode, put the product in the bag. Now, there was a moment later on where I had to pick up something larger and had to put the phone away. And then I realized, well, if I need to get this back out to scan something, I'm gonna have to put something down because I have to have two hands to open it up. That is, look, that's frustrating. That's annoying. But there's so much more good about it. First off, the barcode scanning worked tremendously well, so much better than it worked on the original Duo. Not a single scanning error. It was just so good. And again, having the text messaging up on the other screen to not, I'd have to switch between them. I could just sit there and have them both up. So good. Awesome. Just all those things for me. If you really value having a one-handed device, in phone mode, this thing's not a one-handed device. You can kind of do it, but like it's hard to reach across and you're not reaching the top of the thing at all for sure. This is a two-handed device in phone mode or otherwise. But I'm good with that because when I'm using my Duo, I'm being intentional. I'm doing something. So I'm not over here doing this and not paying attention. I've got both hands on it and I'm being intentional. Again, this is so subjective, but I really like it. I do not regret buying this thing. If I had to go back and do it again, I would do it again. It's really good for me. I love having it in the car dock that I talked about a year ago with, Google Maps up and YouTube Music up at the same time. There's so much stuff that I love about Surface Duo. And I finally feel like Duo 2 is like 80% of the way towards being the device that I wanted it to be. And I'm really happy about that. So guys, there you go. There's a 1 month review update. This was probably more positive than the original review was a month ago. And that's how I feel. I feel really good about it right now. Not a perfect device, but probably the perfect device for me right now. Guys, stay tuned for more content just like this. Hit that like button, hit that share button, subscribe, join, all that stuff if you did enjoy this video. And like I said, stay tuned for more. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.